just been trying to survive and being cut my job. That's good.
Did you hear about the event?
Have your attention, everybody. Can everybody hear me? I know you're really excited to get going, but let's it's so wonderful to see you all here. My name is Lynn Rainwater. I'm on the board of Seattle Neighborhood Greenways, and I have the delightful job of introducing your presenters in this session on tactical urbanism and placemaking, small actions, big impact. We're going to explore some real-life examples of temporary or small-scale interventions that helped pave the way for larger change. You'll walk away with practical ideas for creating joy and urgency in public space improvements. Our workshop leaders are Rachael Ludwick and Margaret McCauley. Rachael Ludwick works as a software developer in Seattle, but takes way too many pictures of curb cuts, sidewalks, their child, and cats. Margaret McCauley is an environmental engineer, forever attempting to adjust the city to make it more enjoyable for all of us. She's on the city's school traffic safety committee and shamelessly uses her multi-generational family for photos to illustrate possibilities for street improvements. Working at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, as long as it lasts, hopefully forever, she has experience on both sides of bureaucracy. So, thank you. They did an amazing job of working out technical glitches at right on time. So,
I do not do presentations very often, so Margaret is going to keep me from rambling. The first thing I want to do is we're going to try to spend some time talking about doing some planning some technical urbanism. That's the way to talk about it. Anyway, near the end of the intro part of the presentation, so I'm going to hand cards and pencils out. So if there's a thing in your neighborhood or somewhere you visit that you're like, this could be better, and you want to talk about how we can make it better, we're going to try to pick out one or two to talk about later on and have the group, brainstorm together, I guess. And maybe people come away with, feeling that they can just go do it as a group of folks. So that is what those are for. Here, this is all difficult.
How many of you are already in some of the signal chats about? So you guys can jump in with your thoughts on things. The basic definition is people doing things that they feel like should happen and then seeing what takes hold from there.
The whys. So I guess the first bullet point is mine because this is why I do it, which is making the place something better for your neighbors, for yourself. That is one big reason. Another reason is you get to meet neighbors. I've made a lot of friends doing things. If you show up, you don't necessarily talk all that much if you're hard at work, but you talk some. And sometimes you talk more. You also think of all kinds of ideas. I have ideas far more than I could ever do because I do lots of stuff. I work and I have church community stuff and I have family stuff, and so I have a project list for my neighborhood that's far longer than I would ever get to. But you come up with those ideas together, and sometimes someone else grabs your idea and does it. So that's very cool. And also one that I don't do as much, but it has happened, and we'll have some examples, is you get to draw attention to what things need to change. And sometimes people who have more power or influence, or who are literally in government, take it up and do it. And that is also very cool. And there's other reasons, but those are the ones I thought, those are the ones that I like to think about. So I don't know if you want to add any that I had put in there. All right, I'm going to dive into some examples. These are my favorite ones. So this is the immediate benefits one. This is the one I do the most of. We have a very ad hoc, not very high traffic group called Seattle Street Fixers. We are not the only ones that do it. I just gave us a brand name and made a Google group and got other people to do it with me because we were doing it kind of ad hoc, just emailing neighborhood greenways lists. And we just well, maybe we should have a group for this, and the people can do it. And it's very self-organizing. The person who does it just says, hey, we want to do this thing in this place. Meet here, this time, let's do it. So this is an example of just clearing a sidewalk. The left is the before picture, and you can see that there is a lot of blackberry, bramble, and other stuff overlaying the sidewalk, and the sidewalk just kind of falls into the street. And then on the right side, it's all cleared, including it's pushed back a little bit away from the sidewalk, so when it starts to overgrow again, it will not immediately take over the sidewalk again. This particular route is actually a route to school for a nearby school. It's on Rainier and Letitia. So immediate benefits. Some kids can walk to school and not have to dodge blackberries or go into the street. I think that's what makes me happy. That's the one I do, and then I do it, and I feel great for days. This is one I think that happened like a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago. I do not know who did this, or why they did it, or where. This is in some spot in South Lake Union, near the Center for Good Votes. And there's the spots where like the path you want to take if you're on a bike is just right across like a muddy patch, and there's no street there. And so someone put in between the bottom of the picture, you can see there's a little bit of concrete there, and the other side of the back picture, you can see there's more concrete. In between, there's like a little board someone put in, which is wide enough for most two-wheeled bikes to travel through. And someone just did it. I don't know if it will result in permanent change, but I'm sure that will make a lot of people happy for a while. And I think that's great. And then another one, this is one that kind of transitions to a longer term thing. Who here knows about like the Healthy Streets / Slay Healthy Streets program? Yeah. And then they were built on top of our existing Greenway network in COVID. And there was like endless planning, and that's both the derogatory and complimentary use of the word endless, about how do we make this permanent? Because they started out as just these signs. This first picture you can see there's a really big one of those like wood and metal signs that they put up for like temporary road closures and stuff like that. But the problem is they're easy to fall down. They're like people can just move them easily. If even the slightest bump from a vehicle will result in falling down. And it's intended at this spot on this. This is by Rainier Beach, the whole Rainier Beach complex of schools and the community center. So the Greenway and the Cloverdale behind, and people would just turn really fast and like knock it over. People would move it out of the way so people could turn really fast without risk. And some people said, like, why don't we put in a big metal planter box? And it's a big, wide metal planter box, the kind you'd use in a yard for like a tall raised bed, and put some plants in there. And at the time, the city was very slowly planning out how they're going to do permanent infrastructure, and it was seemingly very delayed. And a few months later, they put in the permanent infrastructure on the right, and someone moved the planter boxes somewhere else. And that was one really great, because it got the city actually like doing the thing faster than they said they were going to do. And I don't know how much it helped, but it felt like it helped. And also it kept people from moving the sign and knocking it over for a while. And that leads into the next. There we go.
So this is one that Rachel and I did, and maybe why we were invited to give this session. We had a little party in a slip lane.
That's what a slip lane is.
Which is when the road has been, this is something I learned, I think maybe at this party, when there's an uncontrolled turn. So it's to facilitate the rapid flow of cars without having to worry about anyone else. And it's really kind of awkward in an urban environment, and this is, right on the prow of Beacon Hill by Medical Center where I go. And so we were like, it would not hurt anyone to take 4 seconds at the most longer to make an actual turn. And this is space, so let's have a party. So we had a party on a beautiful June day, and it's sort of an informal, for people who are here in the business section, by having a party in the slip lane, you do end up getting comments from people passing by, whether you want them or not. And but it's also kind of hard to like yell at people having a party. It doesn't feel right as a human. So I personally feel like this is something we should do more of, because it really did have a transformative emotional experience for the people who were both there and the people who were interacting with it, I would say.
Yeah, it was great. There was kids playing in the street in this little like spot, and they were having fun. My kids, your kids.
My kids are all out of town, which is probably the reason.
Oh, your kids weren't there at that one.
Yeah.
Other kids, though. And they, yeah,
so then the right. Sorry, I don't know why. Sorry, I'm pointing at the left is us setting up for the party, and then the right is how it has now been blocked off. It is no longer a turn lane for cars. So the poor people in cars have to actually just turn as opposed to go quickly.
Are you gonna cover this later? Like, did you get a permit
We
for
did
this?
not.
Okay. Okay.
This was just a party
Cones.
Yeah.
in the
Cones.
street
Cones.
that happened to happen.
I believe some people from Beacon Hill Safe Streets were the primary organizers. I don't remember who the primary organizers were, and
I don't know that it matters.
I don't know that matters. But the point is, it was people who knew each other through other discussions, I think,
Yeah.
to some degree. So, which I think matters because it helps to do
That's
things
true.
like that when
It's
you
a
have a
sense of-
group.
a note of safety, yes.
How long did it take between the two photos?
Oh golly, that's
Change.
Good question.
Maybe
the
a
photo's
year.
2018, right? I think it was 2018, 2021, 2022.
Not
Because
that long.
the right project happened as part
It was
of
faster.
the 12th Avenue Safety Project, which is where they put in protected bike lanes between King and the bridge on 12th Avenue South, which is through Little Saigon and that area, through the Jose Rizal Bridge. So it was not an insignificant number of years, but it also made it clear and it helped people realize that, hey, we should keep asking for this as they started planning a project. So.
One of the things, I don't know, I mean, you've probably all experienced this as well, is that like, and I am a bureaucrat, so I do know both sides of this, but like, I'm very frustrated sometimes when I'm like, I get a thing out there, and then SDOT does it, and they don't tell me thank you, or or even admit that it was me who made them do it, and I'm like, so just have to get, there are a lot of emotions involved in these things, and that's one of them, is that like, you create this thing, it's amazing, everyone believes, and then it happens for real, and then you don't get a thank you card. I send them thank you cards.
Send people thank you
I
cards,
send
even when you
physical
don't
thank
really
you
feel
cards
it.
to the SDOT crew with the hope that they go up in the break room, bulletin board.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you actually did make a connection with someone that eventually caused this to happen, and if you do ever make those connections, like, do you have tips on how to actually do that? Like, sure, you did some demonstration, or you put something in. How do you actually then get someone to acknowledge it and do something?
That's
real
what I'm
about it?
saying, is you may never get that satisfying acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Well, it may not be acknowledgement, but like, if you do want a permanent thing put in, like, how do you actually, or can you ever make a connection to push harder to make it happen?
Yeah.
I could have sworn
No,
that person actually rolled by during this.
Yeah,
one.
no, I mean, so a lot of times what you're trying to do is create a sense of inevitability. Because generally the people at the SDOT level who you'll be interacting with are like, yeah, that sounds fine, that's cool. And it's some sort of bureaucratic thing up above, because bureaucrats hate change. Like, anything that requires you to like assert yourself could go either way. It could get you in trouble, or it could get you accolades, and why risk it? So the more you create a sense of inevitability, like this is just the way it's gonna be, then you create the political cover for the people higher up in the authority to, and that's I guess another session that's happening right now. But the School Traffic Safety Committee is pretty fun because we have bureaucrats from a number of agencies, and so it's not just SDOT being like, nope, nope, nope. It's sort of embarrassing all of them in front of their peers at the same time, and that seems to unstick things a lot faster.
And also to be clear, this project is happening in a spot that both SDOT and WashDOT have jurisdiction on.
Yes.
Because that bridge goes over over the I-90 connection from I-5. So.
Wait, sorry, so just because it's over the top
Yeah.
of a state?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Wow, okay.
And so that can complicate matters. Like this is the bureaucracy thing, and there can be a lot of like, the Spider-Man. And I don't think it's because anyone in the agencies are like horrible, malicious actors or anything like that. I think genuinely everyone I've ever interacted with at SDOT or WashDOT for that matter has been enthusiastic about whatever I'm suggesting.
They care.
But you have to create the.
But you have to create, like, there has to be, nothing happens in politics, and this is all politics fundamentally, unless people really are saying, hey, we should just, everyone wants this, how can you say no to this? Like, it has to feel like, it can't be stopped for whatever reason. hopefully not with
Do
threats.
you
but,
mind
you
if
know.
I give a little example from my own
Yeah,
experience from
for
last?
sure.
So
Merlin's got
some
lots
of you
of-
might have actually read about me in the newspaper. So one really, really great way to get the attention of the city is to get hit by a bus, and then 1 week later to convince somebody else to do a hit and run at the same spot.
Not ideal, not ideal.
And that, actually set a fire, and they were able to fix something really quick. But I hope that you never have the opportunity to
Yeah, ideally you
use
can
that
start
kind
parties.
of effective
It was Wesley.
tactical urbanism. Yeah.
Quick question. Did you say convince someone to do it?
Be the change you want to see in the world. This is a little different from something that's permanent, like installing a crosswalk or daylighting an intersection with flex posts. Like you had to occupy the space, but then you're gone. Like
Yeah.
how did you think about that? I guess just were you trying to get press coverage, or like how do you make sure that your message stuck? Or I wasn't familiar with this project. Did you go back and do this multiple times? Like how did you sort of make sure that it stuck? I
It
guess
was-
in the
As I recall, and so my memory isn't always great, we knew that something was gonna be happening on the bridge, but there's a lot of pushback about the slip lane.
Because SDOT had a long-term concern about like speeds, because people will just, like the speeds on that bridge were
Yeah.
like 45 miles an hour
Yeah.
frequently.
Yeah.
So like SDOT, it's hard to convince them to do stuff, because part of this entire project when it finally happened is they actually took away traffic lanes both directions. To reduce the speed, put in bike lanes, and this project ultimately happened as part of that. So I think part of what this is doing is building people who know about it and will like be aware when this starts happening, say, hey, we should do this, this is okay, this is good, this is why it will be good. And like, once it went in, like I use it all the time, I was biking my kid to, like, it was actually genuinely transformative, because my family would bike through there, and now we had space that was less unsafe feeling. And my kid was in kindergarten when I started biking, I mean, that's when it was happening. So I don't think there's not, like, you can't guarantee your things are gonna have results, but you can make it so that you have other people around you, there may only be a few other people. But like, a lot of people don't engage with city actions, so it doesn't take that many people to make a loud noise that will build over time. So like, even if we didn't have, can't guarantee it, it can still help, because there's people in here I know, I'm now friends with, because I met them at this, so.
Have you tried, speaking of like thank yous, that is something, that's a new idea to me. I didn't think, oh yeah, we should follow up when SDOT does something good and be like, this is
I always
awesome.
did the little card.
Have you,
Yeah, I don't send
Feels good.
cards, I usually send emails, I'm boring.
have you ever tried tactical thank yous? Like what if a sign went up right here, like people were hit here and now it's safer, yay, or something
I
like
don't know
little.
about that, I love that.
Really, don't forget to fill out cards if you have ideas, we're gonna discuss them.
Yeah, no, I totally love that, because I feel like one of the audiences that isn't necessarily immediately important, but we have, I think, underreached is the crews themselves. Maybe someone here was expressing an interaction with the crew installing some safety feature who were apparently very grumpy about it. And I was like, yeah, I think we probably could interact with those crews more and sort of engage them, because they can probably figure out ways to make those installations work better if they
Yeah,
were emotionally
I
invested.
literally thanked an SDOT worker fixing a pole with a signal on it that had been hit by a car on my way here this morning.
Was that the one at Rainier and Dearborn?
Yeah,
Yes!
yeah.
Oh, it's fixed!
They had all, yeah, they're fixing it.
That was wild, yeah.
Yeah,
So this is one that neither Rachel and I know much about, but
it happened many years ago, but it's cool.
but we were told to present on it. So, and so this is, and we're sort of trying to, or I was trying to stage the narrative arc here, which is that this is another one where somebody engaged, knew that this bridge, which is somewhere in
Part of 15th Avenue Northeast.
Yeah.
north of Ship Canal, I don't know.
Yeah, North Ship Canal is just another city to me.
So someone knew that this bridge was gonna get a resurfacing, and they took advantage of Parking Day, which is an official thing that may be on hold and maybe not on hold, but for a while in the teens was a thing where you could get a permit to do stuff in the parking lanes, and
Exactly.
they did this, and that demonstrated that there could be bike lanes on this bridge, and
Technical
that
improvement.
was a way to like make it happen in terms of like
Yeah.
the reality appear.
Yeah, and to be clear, it did get incorporated into the repaving project, so that's like
We just
natural
saw a
benefit.
picture because we
We couldn't find a good picture of it. The only one I could find was not good.
This is another one that I don't think either of us know anything about because it's way up.
I knew about it when it happened because I got a lot of social media.
But the picture on the left with the street sign is from the Seattle Times. People painted a crosswalk, and then the city took it away, but then the city put it back in, which is a sequence that we've seen in a number of places.
Do you think it is advantageous to paint it like this, where we know what the standards are, right? You can look up what street standards are, you can paint it to look correct, or you can paint it to not look correct. Do you think there is a strategy?
I do. I think there's a strategy, and I think some cases one makes more sense, in some cases the other.
Fair enough.
And I think we could all probably have different opinions, like the stop signs that someone put on up here on Capitol Hill. I kind of wish they had put the actual correct stop sign, because I really kind of think that if they had put the correct stop sign, it might have just stayed. Whereas something like this, I feel like it was more of the prompt that was needed, because you don't really want people walking in places that aren't yet great.
It is still, even when it was not painted, a legal crosswalk, to be clear.
Yeah.
Just because I like to always point that out to people that paint it. Just
So
lack
there's
of
no-
paint does not make it illegal for you to cross.
You don't think there was an aspect of like, well, they painted it wrong, so we'll go along, paint it right? And
No, there is.
oh, there is an aspect. Okay.
There is an aspect of that. No, it definitely, I sometimes put things in reports that I'm writing for work. I put the word poo a lot, because no one likes that.
Right.
They all get in there and fix it for me, so
Right.
yeah, no, definitely.
You're trying to
Nice.
read it.
Yeah, exactly. Once they're typing, then they keep typing.
Yeah.
Is SDOT ever motivated by budget? Like, oh, they did it for us cheaper.
So there is a thing where that is true. We don't have it particularly in this presentation, but the painting of curbs is something that, in theory, SDOT would do, but they're never going to get around to it because their crews are always busy doing more.
Especially near
important things.
especially near intersections on some little small streets.
And there's also a union issue of it's a body of work, so they can't really be like, hey, just you guys do it. But if you talk to people individually, I mean, people at SDOT who've worked with the School Traffic Safety Committee have told us verbally before the meetings were all recorded. I don't know if it happened now, but please do. We're not going to get to it. We don't want to mess up the union contract. I'm a union member, so I'm not. That's not a negative. It's just a thing. Please do paint the curbs. Please do this and power wash it first and get the right paint. And they would very much appreciate that.
Just never gonna get scheduled if you don't do it.
But it's not going to get scheduled, and they aren't really going to write a memo to you asking you to, because that gets into other things.
I can speak to the intersection a bit more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Someone
this,
who
this
knows
was a
about
while ago.
Yeah,
I don't know when it was, but now they have a light there that is based off of a bicycle detector, and it will turn it red. And again, the street intersection, I think it's part of a greenway. I usually take my 4-year-old to the zoo, so going from basically Golden Gardens to the zoo, and this
is the best connection to get to.
Yeah, because also on 83rd, they just finished it this year. They have the same sort of thing. They actually put islands on 15th Avenue and 83rd with the bike detector and the light. So you just get on that, it's great. So this was super helpful. It identified that people wanted to bike here and cross here.
Because it is actually a significant amount of work, even this valley, it signals more power than it really seems to be, right? It's just some paint, but that does signal, hey, there's people care about enough this to do something that's technically not legal. And it's not super risky, I don't think, but it signals that there's people that care about it a lot, which is a little bit, I think it's powerful.
Well, I was gonna kind of ask about that. It's how do you kind of manage risk when doing some of these projects? Obviously it isn't legal per se, but it sounds like if you're kind of operating kind of with a sort of, yeah, we'll let you do it, a little bit of a handshake agreement, it sounds like. But I'm just curious, how do you manage risk?
I think that's going to be a personal thing, to be honest. But I can give you a safety vest and not cones.
I also have safety vests and cones. I'll just tell you that street fixers, the rule I set for the group was if you're the person who's organizing the event, you're the one in charge of deciding what the norms for the group are going to be. Obviously encourage people to be safe and don't do certain things that are obviously unsafe, but I wanted people to basically think about what risk they were doing and like try to have a group, or if you, like, there's things you can do, but like it really does have to be individuals, because most of the time they're not going to care that you're doing something, but maybe they will depending on what you're doing. So it's kind of, you kind of have to really, it is very, very case by case, and different people have different tolerances for risk. Like in street fixers, some people like to bag up all of the things they cut down. Other people are like, I'll throw it over this fence into this overgrown lot, right? So like, that's two different judgments of risk. I'm sorry.
Just back to the last one. Just curious, the sense of like urgency for the implementation of like the flashing beacons after like the crosswalks.
The Greenwood.
Yeah, just like I don't know, SDOT or who, I don't know.
I don't know the details of how that got planned.
Yeah.
I don't either. It's not a flashing light. It's an actual like red
signal.
stop sign, turn signal.
Just
And
like generally speaking,
And
though.
it,
Like
This one where it has a signal for the
does
Greenwood
that one
traffic.
does have a signal?
Yeah.
it has a
Now
signal
it does.
for pedestrians, and it detects bikes, and then it will turn red, so you won't cross.
It turns red for the
For
Greenwood.
people crossing that aren't
Yeah.
cars, so
Yeah.
it doesn't have it's just a stop sign for cars, and then a stop light to stop traffic on Greenway. But I don't know the timeline of it. I
Yeah.
just know that that intersection is really nice because of somebody
I think it
pointing
drove
out
attention.
that it was an issue, and people wanted, like, it was the desire path, so they put the
Yeah.
crosswalk in, and then SDOT, and was like, okay, yeah, let's make this a thing.
It was pretty quick.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
I mean, within a year, I felt like it was.
Yeah, I think you've done in a couple of years is quick for
Yeah.
the city. So if it happened in a couple of years,
I don't want to hold it up
Yeah.
too much more, but along the lines of some other questions, if you've ever done installations that are getting repeatedly removed by either just random other people, or if you've ever had experiences where SDOT really doesn't like it and has come out and removed or destroyed whatever you did, like, how do you deal with that? Like, do you have strategy, like, you know, say you put in like bike lane protection or something, and SDOT is just like, nah, and just keeps removing it. What do you do with that? And do you ever worry about that they're actually gonna try and come after you for some, you know, like payment for them having to do that? Like, is there a reasonable expectation that they may come after you legally because of the work that you're forcing them to do to go and remove this thing over and over?
I think Seattle culture wouldn't really support that, but you never can say for sure. So that is where it comes down to a personal decision.
I think as long as no one's actually getting hurt, it's very unlikely. But like, who knows? Things change. But like with the crosswalk thing, there's one on like Olive Way or something in Capitol Hill that someone painted, and then they came in and like, you know, whatever they do to make paint get removed. And like, honestly, I think more people learned about them removing it than they learned about the not, you know, the illegally placed crosswalk paint. So I think in some ways, like, doing stuff like that can draw attention to something that makes the city look bad more than.
Yeah.
So like, again, it's not individual risk, but I think there's like a very large trade-off from the city's perspective to draw attention to something.
I think maybe a related question that I have is like around just cost.
Yeah.
So say you do some tactical urbanism and you buy 50 cones and they disappear the next day. How many times can you buy 50 cones?
Yeah, that is
and so like a lot of this, any of these projects that do involve cost, is it just this really grassroots, like the 12 people that really want to do it, or just kind of pooling money and deciding when to stop, kind of thing?
I mean, I have a collection of cones I picked from bushes, so.
If you see cones
everywhere.
Yeah.
Take a cone, leave a cone.
Okay.
Like people like do like construction projects and the city do projects and they just like leave cones for months, and I'm just like, well,
Oh, man,
that's mine now.
Okay.
That's the timer. It's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I don't have currently I don't have a collection of cement-filled cones. So I'm thinking about
Which I've
adding
heard about, yeah.
that to my roster. So this is one a friend of mine did, and it was also taking advantage of the parking day permission, but instead of one parking space, she did like a mile of Rainier on both sides, and you can see You can see the cones over there too. This is just screenshots of a video that I thought was kind of amazing. And this is just chalk. You can see that the bike is a little bit
The bike symbol is not totally correct.
become immediately bike lanes on Rainier, but it definitely had that same sort of like opening up of minds impact on what is and what isn't possible in terms of making infrastructure that could work for multiple people in multiple modes. And that sort of brings us to the how. I was learning how to use a forklift because I had a plan to move some of the eco blocks that had been strewn about on
We need to talk later.
13th Ave South over to the Dearborn bike lanes, but the next month they actually put in those Jersey barriers, although I still feel like I could just, instead of going west, which is what I was going to do, I could just move them to the east in front of Goodwill because there's nothing there now. But anyway, so yeah, there's kind of a range. There's butcher paper and there's forklifts. And there's 10 tool libraries in King County and this pretty fun book which is available free online, and there's a link in the notes. So it does kind of depend on what you got, what mood you're in.
Yeah. Some of my stuff is all tree trimming and plant trimming, and so I have a shocking number of tools that load up on my cargo bike and go places. So it's not just, there's all kinds of things that I would classify tools.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Some of them have broad uses.
So now we're at the...
Oh yes, the Plenty of Project. Do people write something cards? Can we collect them?
Question over there.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just curious, like with the bike lane one, I mean, I know you weren't involved in that one, but like, do you ever think about like organizing people to use it continuously throughout the day? Because I feel like one of the things that's hard for people to understand is induced demand, and like, if it is there, people will use it, but if it's not publicized enough, then it's just kind of there, and maybe everyone's still not using it because they're not used to it being there. It's tactical. But like, if you show that people know that it's there and they're using it, that could be really powerful.
It's true. If you're trying to like demonstrate, we don't have pictures of it, but when your Seattle Neighborhood Greenways organized a people protected bike lane on 4th, when there wasn't one on
In front of City Hall.
in front of City Hall, and then it was kind of realized a little bit. You know, we'd set up, and then we're like, oh, but we're in between commute hours. There's no one going through, and some people just got Lime bikes and started like riding. So yeah, no, that is you're right. You have to, if you're making street theater, you do have to think of like all the different.
It's not infrastructure, but intermittently we've had people organize like group ride. Like this is what Critical Mass does: is they organize group rides. But you don't have to do Critical Mass. You can organize a group of friends and just. It's much like I have a bike train here by myself. But it is much nicer to ride it in a group of people. And so we've had a couple rides where people like just meet at some place, like in Columbia City or whatever, and bike Rainier all the way up to Dearborn or something like that. There's a few other streets we've done that on as well. Like Lake Washington Boulevard on a not bicycle weekend day time, we've done it as well. And like that's not like an infrastructure thing, but it's just that like we are here, there's something that could rhyme there that would actually, but the point is like that, I think that matters too, because that reminds people, hey, people could be here. And they would be here if there was many of us. Anyway, cards. Should we talk cards?
Just a thought on eco blocks. I'm down in South Park, and South Park and Georgetown is ripe with eco blocks. I think that's migrating there or something. And I don't know, just like a thought, like maybe think about the unintended consequences of some of these. Again, mainly eco blocks. A lot of businesses have placed these kind of in like dead zone area streets for obvious reasons, which has resulted in the mobility of the things they were trying to prevent going to where they can't be eco blocks, like in front of the parks. And so, they've, moved these things away from their businesses in an industrial area, and now they have now migrated to where the community gathers. Because they're not gonna put eco blocks in front of the park. So, just kind of think of like what might be the next step if there could be those adverse consequences.
I'm not entirely following you.
There
Are you
were
saying
eco-
we should move those eco blocks to a place where you would like to see them? That makes sense to me.
Well, I think like a good example is like Georgetown set up eco blocks but they space them so you could park cars still. These eco blocks basically just blocked off the entire street, so RVs and things like that that would park in an industrial area where, you know, children aren't walking by every day, those are now in front of the parks. Because they're gonna go somewhere, right?
Okay, I think that may be a little out of scope, though.
It is, for sure. It's just the overall theme
This is a particular hobby horse of mine, but I'll note that one of the things that eco blocks are doing right now is actually anti-homeless.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly,
And I don't know what to do about those ones because I find I have strong opinions about that particular use of eco blocks that I think you use to protect people, and so I don't know what to do about them. But I have had dreams of figuring out how to move eco blocks for purposes of. Well, for purposes.
We could organize a SNG.
So I just like to let people know we got 10 minutes until this
Yeah.
session
So we got plenty to talk about. So
there's plenty to talk about. And it's not really a hard stop because there's not another session right after this, but I will announce.
I'm glad you all have questions.
5-minute and so forth.
Ooh, I can think of so many fun things.
Is there one that calls you?
I'll go ahead and ask about in the blue.
Oh, well, how does Seattle Greenways, how are they able to help? Because you guys had that, well, it sounds like you were very involved with the Westlake, slip lane there. And Greenways was able to get SDOT down there to make an immediate change. And how can this tactical urbanism mesh with, how can we get Seattle Greenways help if we see change? Because you're a stakeholder organization that hopefully has a direct line to SDOT, or how?
Okay, so Seattle Neighborhood Greenways is structured as a coalition of neighborhood groups. So if you want to get Seattle Neighborhood Greenways involved in a project, then your first step is to go to your local group. And Seattle Neighborhood Greenways does have both staff and money to support a limited number of projects like this.
Relatedly, Rachel, would you mind talking again about the Google group you made?
Oh, it's called Seattle. We'll have a list of. We'll
Okay.
leave up the slide, but
Great.
it's called Seattle Street Fixers.
Okay.
And it's just that's my personal. We are not the only ones to do it. I
Yeah.
like it. There's other groups in other neighborhoods that do it on their own, and sometimes cross. There's a Mount Baker Hub Alliance that does stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know. We'll get to that end. But we should pick a thing to talk about, so we could talk about how we would do a project. But
yeah, if there's time, I'm really interested in this temporary activation idea. But I'm curious in particular how you kind of mentioned a little bit, but like how you deal with conflict amongst people who aren't participating in the activation but are observing it or noticing it, and like. Were there specific strategies you tried to use? If there was a really angry driver?
that is in fact the thing we have done.
Would you like a donut? How about a taco?
Yeah. Like bringing them in.
Yeah, I mean, people are gonna have whatever emotions they have, but the more you sort of connect to the basic human desire to like fit in and do the thing that's happening, because people are always like, what's going on? Maybe I should be doing this thing that's happening. So it's which is why I personally feel like a party approach is generally better. This is slightly off
I mean,
topic,
the
but
biggest part is like in groups.
when people are doing things with their cars and I'm on my bike and I'm not particularly pleased, and I was like, and sometimes my husband's like, who's that? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, I thought you knew them. And 60% of the time, the person in the car is like, am I gonna hit someone I actually know? I'm like, no. So yeah, I feel like that sort of like bringing people in is more effective. I can't promise a ton. Daylighting?
So several people wrote. I don't want to go to a specific intersection, but some people talk. You have a specific. If you have a specific intersection, but there was more than one people talking about how do we daylight and get like move to daylight intersections. So if you don't know, depending on what type of intersection it is, within 20 feet of a crosswalk, you're not supposed to have any cars parked, and within 30 feet of a signal or a stop sign or controlled whatever, you're not supposed to be parking. But you probably are aware that that is a bait in the breach. So a common thing SDOT does is they daylight an intersection so that you can actually see. So a lot of people mention this. How would you convince the city to daylight a spot? Like, how would we do that? So, like, the question is, like, what would we do to try to, like, draw attention to daylighting?